Hey you seeker of knowledge, this is GM Jim back with another one of my Steal These Rules videos, because apparently you all really like them, or at least that's what the YouTube analytics say. I also have to give a shout out to Mudak the Multiplier for suggesting this one. Thanks for the tip. Index Card RPG is a game that's been on my to-read list forever, and I finally got around to checking it out, and it's great. So now we're going to talk about 6 simple and fun rules you can steal from it to drop into your D&D or Pathfinder game with just a little bit of adjustment. First up, the Battle Fury die. This little rule is so cool and useful, I don't think it needs any adjustment at all to drop into your 5e game. When you're in combat and you miss with a weapon attack or a spell attack, you start a counter. Index Card RPG says to use a physical d6, which you can do if you're playing at an actual table. Playing virtually, the player just keeps track with a counter somewhere that the GM can also see. So here's how it works. When you make the attack and miss, you roll that counter from 0 to 1. Then on your next attack, you're going to add a +1 to it. If that attack misses, you nudge that counter from a 1 to a 2, and then your next attack has a +2 to it. If you keep missing, you keep upping that counter to a maximum of 6, so that the attack after that would have a +6 on it. And while you're attacking with the counter anywhere above 0 and you're adding those pluses to it, if any of these attacks do hit, you drop that counter back down to 0. Simple, huh? I really like this because those bonuses help lessen the sting of missing. But I don't know if this is something I'd want to use for every player in every combat. That feels a bit too swingy to me. I might treat it instead like heroic inspiration, that a player can earn a Battle Fury die to use in the next combat. Maybe make it like a magic item, something like a potion of Battle Fury that they can drink, and then they get to use it for the next 10 minutes or whatever. On a similar track, let's talk about the Spell Burn die. This one is a d4, and it increases anytime a spellcaster does magic. Any magic, if they cast a spell, you roll the die up 1. When it reaches 4, that PC makes an intelligence or a wisdom saving throw, and if they pass, the counter goes back down to 0, and everything proceeds as normal. But if they fail, there's some kind of consequence, and the counter goes back down to 0. While I do like this mechanic, it feels overly harsh on spellcasters, and I don't think I would use it regularly. But for certain circumstances, I think it could be fun. Say the party goes to a weird section of the Feywild, where magic is unpredictable and harder to cast. Or a powerful wizard has put a magical ward on his own dungeon to thwart enemy mages. So not something I'd use all the time, but as a unique complication, try it out to slow down that fireball-loving mage. Maybe in your next campaign, magic doesn't work right on Fridays or something, or maybe it's just divination magic because the gods are angry. Third on our list is the do system. No, not the yellow-green drink, it's danger, energy, and wonder. It's not so much a mechanic as it is a TTRPG philosophy, but I think it's still really useful. Anytime the PCs enter a situation where the stakes are raised, then the GM needs to focus on the do to keep things humming. First, danger is the threat that's in front of them. Keep your focus on the consequences of failure. So whether it's combat or non-combat, if the stakes and penalties of failure are clear and present in the players' minds, then you can keep the tension high. When the stakes are unclear, players don't often grasp how serious a situation is or can turn out to be. Then the E is for energy. This is all about the pacing. In our dangerous situation, the GM should use bullet points for describing things. To keep the pace fast and the tension high, don't dive too much into detail. Focus on what the players find interesting and discard what they don't. Energy means go with what's exciting. And finally, the W is for wonder. Sly Flourish says that we should always include fantastic locations in our games. D&D is supposed to be a fantasy game full of weird stuff, so include fantastic things to keep your players engaged. Don't settle for the mundane. Why have a human bartender when you could have a bugbear bartender? Why have a creek with clear water that casts your reflection when you could have creek water that reflects back your future self? Fill every moment with wonder and weird crap. Next is a quick and simple one, but number 4 is the option of using playing cards instead of a d20. The rules here are simple. Ditch the d20 and use a 52 card deck. The number cards are numbers, the face cards are 10s, aces are 11s, and jokers are an auto fail. To roll a d20, you draw 2 cards and add them up. Now I love rolling math rocks and I would never want to permanently get rid of d20s in any game. but I could see these being fun on occasion, especially when the mechanics fit the flavor of the story. Like say you're running a casino heist and the players are undercover playing games of chance. Wouldn't it be great in that instance to swap out the d20s for cards because it feels like it fits, right? Here, cards instead of d20s make perfect sense, and everybody loves a change of pace from time to time. And if you're running Theater of the Mind combat, you should absolutely steal how ICRPG measures distance. Everything is either near, close, far, or out of range. Close is melee range. Near is somewhere you could reach with your regular movement. Far would require a dash, and out of range is anything you can't reach on this turn. If you're running Theater of the Mind, don't mess around with feet distance. It's way too fiddly for you and your players to keep track of in your heads. ICRPG's generic distances are much easier to grasp and make sense in those situations. I keep almost saying ICP. You remember those rappers who didn't understand how magnets work? Number 6 on my list is about timers. This is similar to clocks that I covered in my Blades in the Dark video, but in ICRPG it's a little more systematic. In Blades, a clock could be a villain's 6-step plan or a 4-step plan that the scoundrels need to collect the 4 pieces of a robot they want to assemble or something like that. But timers in ICRPG are useful in turn-based scenarios. This is the bomb that's going to go off in 4 rounds, the escape hatch that closes in 2 rounds, the villain who is going to flee after round 5. Timers keep you on track by getting more stuff out of your head and onto paper or digital paper so you don't miss important events. And if you make a timer that you can show to your players, that's a great way to ratchet up the tension. When combat has already started and on initiative count 20, slats open in the walls and water starts to fill the room, that's scary. But when the GM also throws down a D4 on the number 1 and says, when this counts up to 4, you're all underwater, that's terrifying. Nothing in the world motivates players like running out of time. Sometimes I like to use these little guys for real-life timers. Like when the PCs are trying to persuade the queen to help them with some quest. So I pull out a 3-minute hourglass, flip it over, and say, okay, you have 3 real-life minutes to change her mind. It definitely heightens the mood. This game has lots of other cool mechanics you should steal, but instead of listing each and every one, I'm going to encourage you to pick up your own copy so you can find out for yourself. This is a great game. You just might decide to run a full session of it. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and if you can spare a click, I sure would love a like and subscribe below. Until next time, this is GM Jim telling you that while you can't run your whole life from an index card, you can probably run a whole RPG that way. And I hope those guys from Insane Clown Posse did somehow figure out a way to understand the magical properties of magnetism. Laters.